This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I wanted to do a video more about the EMPs for people to understand how they could nuke electronics, but not necessarily using a nuclear bomb. I know when I was covering the EMPs last couple of weeks, a lot of people said nukes aren't real and neither are solar flares, and I totally understand what they're saying. There's people out there, as far as believe that there's a firmament and a dome, and okay, right? So some people don't believe in solar flares. And that's perfectly okay not to believe in it. You're entitled to believe what you want to believe. Me personally, I'm covering this and showing you this because all of these things that are getting blamed on nature are being done by these people. That's the whole point of climate change. It's to get away with what they're doing. Oh, do you see? Oh, yeah, everything's damaged. Oh my gosh, the sky is covered in sheets of gray. While they're magnetizing the sky, then we have, of course, the threat of an EMP. Now, this could be done in multiple ways. Obviously, we know that they've told us that Russia and China can do this, and I know people have said, well, I don't believe in nuclear bombs. And I totally understand that too. Why would we believe in it? We've only been shown it. You don't have to believe in it. You can believe what you want to believe, right? I'm not somebody who's going to sit here and force it onto you, but I'm going to tell you this. The purpose of climate change, the purpose of all of these things that they're talking about and showing you is to blame someone other than themselves. Because when the people actually find out that it's their own governments who are doing this, well, then there actually might be a massive revolt. People might go werewolf on them. But that won't happen because they already have excuses in place. So, of course, the massive EMP can be blamed on Russia, which is definitely a narrative that's in play now. It could even be blamed on aliens because there's even new reports, which I'll cover, in the upcoming days or week, about aliens, and aliens are using electromagnetic pulses, right? So they could use something like that if they nuked out the entire grid. Or you could go to theories like this about the sun. So let's tie in the sun, where they can blame it naturally on the sun and then tie it into climate change and say it has to do with carbon and carbon emissions, all this other crap that they push on us. And if people aren't familiar, they've claimed, which we don't know if it's necessarily true because none of us were alive to witness it and everything we've learned in history is fake, but they've claimed that the sun has sent solar flares which have knocked out the grid. Now, that could easily be a story that's put in place for all of us to see so that we go, oh, okay, it makes perfect sense, while they're creating artificial sun. So let's start with this EMP wipeout and the sun being responsible instead of something like Russia being the excuse that they might use.
As a leader, you may stop enemies from using an EMP bomb. But when the attack comes from nature, what will you do? How do you stop the sun from delivering a fatal electric blow?
Is the danger of a natural kind of EMP we call a geomagnetic storm. This originates in the sun, comes out in a very big burst that disturbs the magnetic field of the Earth in a way that can also affect our critical infrastructure.
The structure doesn't care if it's being attacked by a nuclear EMP or by an EMP from a geomagnetic storm.
The result is the same. The grid is the victim. They've hit the Earth before, and they will hit again.
In modern days, a huge magnetic storm like that could cause a great deal of problems that didn't exist in the pre-electric days.
Telegraphs went haywire, overflowing with electric current.
Some of those telegraph systems and stations actually burned out.
Go ahead with the 75 amp test.
Simulating the EMP effect of a large geomagnetic storm. Then came the storm of 1989. All of Quebec went dark.
We went from normal operating conditions to complete province-wide blackout in 92 seconds. We not only experienced a blackout in a major portion of the North American power grid, but we damaged some transformers as well. Something that easily could be 10 times worse is likely to occur at some point in the future. I mean, they have occurred before, they will occur again.
Okay, so you see that they're even telling you there. It's going to happen. It's going to come from obviously a government-controlled, docu-series on Nat Geo, which of course is, all these, they put it out there for a reason. These are the same people that cover Freemasonry and they try to deflect on the Knights Templar and all that stuff. So Nat Geo, Discovery and all that stuff. They never really will give you a truth, but they'll surround you with like what's coming type stuff, predictive programming and whatnot. So you have that there, right? So that plants seeds in people's heads that, wow, the sun can actually do this. And people go, can the sun do it? And a lot of my subs and a lot of people in the truth community say, no, the sun can't do that. So that's understandable. But do they have the technology to do it? Absolutely. But why would they tell you the technology to do it? Because people will go, well, what do we need that for? But say they create something like, I don't know, an artificial sun. Oh yeah, didn't China just do that?
Imagine if we could replace fossil fuels with our very own stars. And no, we're not talking about solar power, we're talking about nuclear fusion. And recent research is helping us get there. Meet the Experimental Advanced Superconducting Tokamak, EAST for short. EAST is a fusion reactor in China, and now it can reach temperatures over 6 times hotter than the sun. Let's take a look at what's happening inside. Fusion occurs when 2 lightweight atoms combine into a single larger one, releasing energy in the process. It sounds simple enough, but it's not easy to pull off. That's because those 2 atoms share a positive charge, and just like 2 opposing magnets, those positive atoms repel each other. Stars like our sun have a great way of overcoming this repulsion. Their massive size, it creates a tremendous amount of pressure in their core, so the atoms are forced closer together, making them more likely to collide. There's just one problem. We don't have the technology to recreate that kind of pressure on Earth. But luckily, there is another way. You can also generate fusion with extreme temperatures. And that's exactly what devices like EAST do. The higher the temperature, the faster the atoms move around, and the more likely they are to collide. But it quickly becomes a balancing act. If the temperature is too hot, the atoms move too fast and they zip right past each other. If it's too cold, the atoms won't move fast enough. So the ideal temperature to generate fusion is around 100 million degrees Celsius. That's more than 6 times hotter than our sun's core. Only a few fusion experiments in the world have surpassed this milestone, and the latest one was EAST. It sustained nuclear fusion for about 10 seconds before shutting down. And while it was a breakthrough for EAST, it's a long way from generating sustainable energy for people of Earth. And that's actually on purpose. You see, EAST is a tiny reactor. At only a few meters across, it's not meant to be a full-fledged power plant. It's an experiment. And right now, its job is to help us design more effective fusion technology that could one day power entire cities. Like ITER, short for International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. It's the world's biggest fusion project to date. 35 countries have poured billions of dollars into its construction, and it's designed to be the first fusion reactor to ever produce more fusion power than the power used to heat it up. You see, you need to pour a lot of energy into these machines to get them to work. This recent EAST test, for example, guzzled over 10 megawatts of power, enough to power well over 1,600 homes for a year. And it didn't even yield half the amount. And since the entire point of a power plant is to, produce power, it's a pretty important issue to work out. But it's worth the effort. For one thing, fusion reactors would produce practically no radioactive waste compared to the kind of reaction we see in today's nuclear fission plants. But even better, fusion reactors can run on seawater, a renewable, sustainable resource. For perspective, the amount of water on just the top inch of Lake Erie is enough to produce more power than all the fossil fuels left on the planet. And unlike other energy sources, it doesn't need the sun to shine or wind to blow. In a time of dwindling resources and worsening climate change, we could sure use it.
So then you have China, right? China has their artificial sun, right? What do you think that's for? Well, they'll tell you it's for, something along those fusion energy, clean energy, right? Because apparently the sun's energy is now deadly. They won't tell you that. Well, a lot of the stuff that's going on is just all man-created, right? They constantly deflect off of chems and cons. They call them cons, but the chems in the sky constantly deflect off of it unless they need it for their narrative. But really, they just constantly deflect off of what it's doing and how they've magnetized the sky. Then you factor in these towers that are all up. So some people have messaged me and said stuff like, Carl, it doesn't make sense that they would do a shutdown. Why would they do a shutdown of the grid? They just put up the 5G. Well, the 5G would enhance any type of magnetism in the air that would get hit with something like this. It would enhance it. The sky is covered in magnetism. We know it's graphene and all this other crap is falling from the sky. Aluminum, sulfur, all of it. It's falling from the sky. They're dumping it on people. People are sick. They have anxiety. They're depressed. We've seen increase in diseases like never before. And of course, they won't address any of that. People just continue to go about their day because they're completely distracted. The 5G tower enhances that. A grid shutdown would not mean the world is going to be like that for forever and ever, because we know the grid has to come back on. People have to take the mark. They have to take the mark in them. They have to become one with technology. But this is what I try to tell people, to at least just think of it from this perspective. You could obviously think what you want. I'm not here to force anything on it. When I think about this and I think how to get people to the mark, well, we see people are obsessed with technology, so everyone's like, oh, they're going to take it. They're going to take it. Yeah. But there's going to be a lot of people who are like, I'm good with my phone. I'm good with this. That aren't going to want to go from the next step to getting it inside their body. Well, a huge EMP would destroy all the electronics that you own, everything. First, it would destroy, it'll destroy anything with a chip. So it'll destroy, products in your home other than your phone. Television would be destroyed, which people keep going. They're like, they wouldn't want to do that. If they temporarily do it, people go werewolf. They go crazy on each other. Government comes in, swoops in, says, look, everyone's out of food and water. Well, we could provide it. They'll provide it in rations. They'll provide you with poison, obviously. Just soy poison and all that stuff that'll completely continue to dumb people down. And then they'll say, well, we can get back to normal. But all the chips have been destroyed around the world. We can't make chips. China has the chips destroyed. All of it, right? And they could blame it on climate change. If it happens here in America as the first test run, they can blame it on Russia, right? Because it's going to happen. So everybody would then lose their technology. Nobody would have cell phones, and we know they'd all go nuts. But then they could come in with a solution and say, the scientists have created something, and something will go inside your body. You don't even need to buy a new TV or a new phone anyway. Because remember, money is going to be canceled out, and you're going to have your universal income, which will really be nothing, and everything's going to be reset and started over. So for people to now go back to the technology that they're going to be craving, oh, well, you can watch TV out of your own eye. You could text out of your own eye. All of this stuff to be implanted into people. But you got to get there first. And the only way really to get there would be to wipe out technology, if you think about it, in the first place. Have it there, have people dependent on it, have people want it. Then when you pull it away from people and you say that you can never have your iPhone back, but scientists have developed something that can't be hacked, it's chip-proof. They'll probably say that the mark isn't a chip, because really it might not be a chip anyway. I mean, we all kind of believe that it's going to be intertwined with your DNA, like what we see going on now. And, everything's going to be in you, right? So they'll probably say it's not a chip, and the EMP is something that hacked all chips, so you can't be hacked. Don't worry if that ever happens again with the climate. Of course, that narrative, too, with the climate, they can blame on right wing, so it continues the fight between the right and the left. They could dupe Christians into believing that climate change was real from the get-go, when in reality it was man-created by these people with their demonic technologies like CERN and HAARP. And as they say, bada bing, bada boom. So I'm telling you this because this is the threat that they're constantly talking about. It's not like just some thing that I pulled out of my rear end or others have pulled out of their rear end. It's on the website of the Department of Homeland Security. The government's constantly talking about it. The TV shows that are pushing propaganda and getting people prepared are talking about it. We have a grid that's completely unprotected. We put billions of dollars and millions of dollars into giving out free income to people who cut off their wieners. We give tons of money for all these things that are completely pointless and useless, and it's being done on purpose. Because all that's doing is causing division amongst citizens while they're planning on destroying everything. And this is all about people taking the mark. Now, some people believe that people have already taken it. That's perfectly fine to believe. And it might very well be true. But an EMP wipeout would make it needed for people to get back in. Because people, remember, if everything's wiped out and you have no TV and you have none of this stuff anymore, and there's no money and nothing in your bank account, you can't buy or sell, coming in with a technology that could be in you would make perfect sense. But they would need to wipe everything off first. Nobody's going to give up everything they own unless it's taken from them. Well, what's the government going to do? Come to your house and take your car and say, we're repossessing your car, you didn't pay your taxes, or come repossessing your car, you didn't pay your credit card. But no. And people aren't going to willingly go, you know what? I'm going to give up everything I have because I want to be more libtarded. No, they're not going to do that. And the government, if they did something like that, the citizens would rise up. So they have an excuse and a plan to blame on something else. And they can blame it on nature. They can blame it on Russia at first if they want to do a test run, which I believe they possibly would do here in America, because America is really the sitting duck for the test run. We see test runs going on all around the world, right? Australia, New Zealand test runs with the quarantining. Obviously, China leading the way. China, the one who has the artificial sun. And they tell people, people aren't like, what are you making an artificial sun for? They're like, oh, well, because of climate change, the sun is eroding and what? And they're like, this will be a safe, clean way. Meanwhile, they'll shoot the thing into the sky like we all saw, remember?
A number of images and videos of what looks like a ball of light and gas went viral, with users claiming China had actually launched its recent experiment into the sky. One video, which has been retweeted over 20,000 times, pictures a bright light ascending into the air followed by billows of smoke, with a crowd of onlookers on the beach avidly capturing the moment on their phones. The posts have since been debunked, as they reportedly picture a completely different event, the launch of a Chinese rocket a few weeks prior. Snopes reports that the video is likely to be from a launch from Wenchang Space Launch Center in Wenchang, Hainan, China. Another viral video, captioned the moment China launched the artificial sun, as night turned into day, shows a similar ball of light, with its ascension taking place at night. Twitter users commented on the event, with many frightened by the possibility of a fake sun. China's actual experiment, which remains firmly on the ground at a nuclear fusion facility in Shanghai, is designed to hopefully one day create unlimited clean energy. The machine managed to reach temperatures of up to 70 million degrees Celsius. That means China's East machine can burn almost 5 times hotter than the thing that is literally keeping everyone on Earth alive.
Right, we saw that and they were like, that's not a test run or anything like that with the artificial sun. Oh, okay. All right, that looks perfectly normal. That goes up. Their man-created EMPs get shot out. Technology gets shorted. Because remember, some people are like, well, they'd have to shoot drones in the sky and they'd have to fly over certain specific areas. Well, like I covered a couple weeks ago, everyone at one time saw the entire country covered in a cloud. When I did the video, everyone was saying the same thing. Like, yep, I saw it too. I noticed it too. I looked at the map on the Weather Channel or whatever radar they went and looked at. And they said the entire country was covered in just a sheet of gray, right? And then we saw some of these experiments going on in the sky, but we know that the sky is already prepared for this. We know the towers are already in place for this type of attack, and we know that they're sitting there saying, look at our grid, come get our grid. We have excuses for you to take down our grid. And they want you to point at something other than themselves, because the world governments, like I've been saying, have turned on the people. It started, it's going on, and it's not stopping. We're in phase 2 right now. Phase 1 you just saw, and it's going to continue on. They're not taking their foot off the gas. This is not a simulation. These things are going to occur. And you want to talk about depop. You know how many people with a grid shutdown are going to be gone? They estimate like 90% of the population would be gone in a year. Because the food supply is so short, they won't be able to eat. So what are you going to do? When you're dying for food and stuff, you're going to have to turn to Big Brother if you're not prepared. And you're going to be dependent on Big Brother. Big Brother's going to probably tell you got to take something if you want to keep getting fed and you want to be able to buy or sell or join society, right? But it's going to start with a wipeout. I don't know when. I've talked about it for years. I just feel it in my gut that it's closer than it's ever been before. So I just want to make sure everyone's ready. And these are the narratives you got to keep your eye on. Don't just automatically go, it's not going to happen because they need technology. It keeps everyone under control. You pull technology, everybody goes, AWOL. Everyone goes nuts when you pull it temporarily. And to get it back on, people will do whatever they're told and whatever. Please, yes, give us it, right? On top of that, it's another way to depop. And on top of that, they can blame it on something other than your own, other than, oh my goodness, we were, oops, we didn't protect the grid, but we didn't do it on purpose. Oh, right, the sun did it. We can't control solar flares. We have people making artificial suns, but we can't control that. Huh? Yeah, everybody wakes up and they're like, what can I do today? I'd like to create an artificial sun because I'm so concerned about global warming and what? All these things are attacks on the citizens. For people who can't see it, you see the people who talk about it and think they're debunking conspiracies. They are so stupid. It's amazing. They title their videos debunking this and debunking that. They don't debunk anything. They just regurgitate what they've been taught out of a textbook. So they're like, I'm debunking it here. See, according to this document from Pfizer, we're supposed to take their word for it. Everybody's always like, oh, well, we can't trust the government, depending on who the president is at the time. Right, we're supposed to trust the FDA, who put, I covered a couple of years ago, putting this weed killer in the food, but somehow it gets through the FDA. Huh? Isn't that their job to look out for what's going in the food? Oops, they say. Oh, we can trust the CDC. Oh, right. Yeah, we trust them all. Trust them all and trust your government. Go ahead. But the people who debunk this stuff, it's like they're not even living in this reality. They're just living in regurgitating what they're taught. They're doing exactly what this system was set up to do, create people like them. And they're trying to battle people like me and you who are critically thinking, who know how wicked and evil these people are and what they're trying to do. And even when this stuff goes down, these same people will still think they'll blame it on whatever it is that they've told them it is. And they've told them it's climate change. They told them it could potentially be Russia, and that's what they'll blame it on. They won't be like, oh, people like a call for number. They're right. The government's... No, they'll blame it on that. So there'll still be a line of defense for these people. They have, these people that we always say, like, oh, there's so small amount of them and there's so many of us, we could do something. They have walls of protection between them, not just the military and the police. They have half of the nation here in America. They're called liberals. They've been mind controlled and trained to fight against us, to hate us. When you see these events where people are speaking and there's protests and riots like BLM, these people are rabid. And in their mind, they think people like us are rabid. They're the ones who are rabid. But the difference is that when everything goes down, we're going to be the ones who are prepared, and we're going to be the ones who are fully, bang, bang, ready to rock, to protect ourselves and our families and our food and everything else from rabid, completely mind-controlled and useless humans. They can only blame themselves for believing in the system that's always betrayed them. They believe in a system that's always let them down. Why? Because I don't know why. Like to say they're dumb, like to say they're under mind control, of course. But it's not too late for them to wake up, but a lot of them are foregone already. Anyway, I'm on a rant here. So that's what I wanted to cover. I just want to talk about that with the sun, with the fact they're creating artificial suns, and other ways that an EMP type event can possibly occur. I don't, again, want to cause fear and panic, but I want you to be aware. These are things that we've seen with predictive programming and movies over and over and over again, and we have our own government telling us it is one of the top national threats that we have. And then, of course, now we're bumbling around our government on purpose, making it look like we're weak, so that that'll be another excuse, too, if they do a simulation with Russia. That's how it works. Reminder, check out the website at callfornuprising.com. It's $2.99 a month. I hope to see everybody over there. I want to thank you for your support, everyone. I appreciate all of you greatly. God bless you and your families.